Gunfire tore the fog apart. Tracers stitched the ridge like burning threads. The mountain wind shoved smoke into their faces. Mud sucked at boots as the SEAL team slid behind a broken stone wall. A mortar thumped. The ground lurched. Dust rained from the shattered doorway over their heads. Contact left. Rooftops, Rourke shouted. His voice cut through the ringing in their ears. Another burst hammered the wall. Stone splinters bit skin. The smell of wet earth mixed with hot metal. Someone grunted. Someone swore. Someone prayed under their breath. The village lay in ruins. Alleys ran like veins. Every window looked like an eye. She moved before anyone told her to. Elia Park. Small frame under a heavy plate carrier. Calm eyes behind fogged lenses. Hands steady. She slid a long rifle case off her back and kicked it open. The latch snapped. The rifle nested inside like a quiet blade. "Hold," Rourke barked. We pushed to the blue door. "On my count." Rounds cracked from the minaret 2 streets over. An enemy machine gun chewed the corner 2 inches from Rourke's cheek. Tiles burst. A chunk of wall punched into the mud beside Elia's knee. She looked up, tracking the line of fire. She could feel the rhythm. 3 seconds on. 1 breath off. The gunner reset the belt. The belt clinked. A boy cried somewhere behind a half-collapsed shop. A woman pulled him down and covered his ears. Elia saw it through a slit in the wall. Civilians trapped. No time to move them. No clean path out. "Can I give it a try?" Elia said. The team looked at her in the smoke and noise. A laugh came sharp and fast. Not cruel. Nervous. It came from Doyle, the breacher, face smeared with soot. "Impossible shot," he said. "Fog. Wind. He is behind stone." Rourke didn't laugh. He watched the minaret flash. "We are pinned," he said. A drone buzzed overhead. Not theirs. The sound was like an angry hornet. The enemy commander had eyes on them. The name moved across their briefings like a rumor. Qadir al-Nouri. A ghost in these mountains. Ruthless. Patient. The kind who used a family as a shield and a camera as a weapon. "Qadir calls the fire," Rourke said. "He sees us." Elia laid prone and wiped her lenses. She slid the rifle free and locked the bipod into a crack in the floor. Her cheek settled to the stock. The cold steel kissed skin. Her breath slowed. She thumbed the safety. She dialed elevation. She listened to the wind. It came down the alley and pushed left to right. The fog swirled like milk. The minaret showed a jagged window. Dark. Then a flare of muzzle. She adjusted 1/2 mil. The machine gun tore the edge again. Sparks jumped. Doyle flinched back and swore. "We need a ladder charge," he said. "Or a miracle." "I have 6 rounds," Elia said. "I only need 1. The laugh came again, softer now. "Show us." She tuned him out. She remembered a little apartment 2 oceans away. A sink full of dishes. Her father's postcard from somewhere he never named. The words had faded. The feeling had not. Hold your sight through the recoil. Follow through. Do not blink. Do not rush. Do not chase the shot. She cleared the memory and returned to the room. Action now. Not past. "Rourke," she said. "Call the wind." He leaned out between bursts and tasted the air with his palm. 3 right, he said. She held 2.5. Pride could kill. She trusted her own feel. A breath in. The world narrowed to the circle of glass. The glass held a jagged window and a smear of shadow. The shadow shifted. The shadow exhaled fire. Elia broke the shot. The recoil punched her shoulder. The rifle whispered and pushed back. She stayed in the scope. Follow through. The bullet crossed fog and wind and dust. She watched the trace like a ghost. It arced and fell. A heartbeat stretched. The muzzle flash at the minaret vanished. Silence did not come. Gunfire still clawed the air from other roofs. But that corner died. The belt slackened. A body fell behind stone with a dull thud. Doyle gaped. No way. Rourke did not smile. Good work, he said. We move. Blue door. No. They ran. Boots hammered puddles. Water slapped their shins. Elia slung the rifle and grabbed the door handle while Doyle set the charge. A woman shouted from the next house. A child coughed. The drone buzz grew louder. It circled like a vulture. Kadir is steering, Rourke said in her ear. He knows we cut his gun. Thunder rolled from the valley. Not weather. A technical truck bounced into view with a mounted cannon. The cannon tracked up the alley. Toward the civilians who hid behind a half-wall. Elia saw the operator lean into the trigger. She saw the woman curl over the boy. No time to flank. No time for a long shot. The rifle was slung and they were 10 steps from the blue door. Doyle, Rourke shouted. Blow it now. Before Doyle could click the detonator, the alley light flared white. A lens flared back on a rooftop camera. Someone was filming the trapped family. A voice boomed from a speaker. Calm. Educated. Cold. Kadir. Leave the door, he said in perfect English. Or I burn the child. The technical's cannon rose another inch. The boy's eyes were wide. Elia felt every muscle lock. The team froze. The speaker crackled again. Kadir sounded close. He was somewhere above them. Watching. Smiling. Throw down your rifles, he said. We will talk. Rourke's jaw clenched. He looked at Elia. He looked at the family. The timer in his head ticked down. Elia lifted her eyes to the rooftops and saw a flash of glass. A spotter scope. A silhouette. Kadir himself stood beside a man with a radio trigger in his hand. Not far. Maybe 300 meters. Wind cross. Fog thin. An impossible shot with no time to set the rifle again. She unslung the rifle anyway and dropped to one knee on the slick cobbles. The technical's cannon whined. The boy began to cry. The radio man's thumb hovered over the detonation switch. Kadir raised his hand, waiting to watch them break. Elia set her cheek to the stock without a rest. Hands steady. Breath steady. Heart loud. She whispered, Can I give it a try? Elia held the rifle like a promise. Her finger eased the trigger. The world tightened to the glass. Wind where she expected it. Fog that tried to steal the trace. She squeezed. The shot left like a struck bell. The recoil hit her shoulder. She did not flinch. She followed through and watched the arc. The tracer nicked the roofline, dove, and struck the man with the radio. He went down with a cry. The detonation thumb flew from his hand. The technical's cannon froze mid-raise. For a breath, the alley tasted of salt and fear. Kadir did not move. He held his posture like a king. His smile vanished. The speaker hissed and cut. The operator on the technical cursed and slammed a hand to the manual trigger. The cannon jumped, and the barrel snapped toward the sky. The technical skidded. Men shouted in a language Elia did not know. The boy still cried. The woman still clutched him. "Nice shot," Doyle gasped. His laugh was half awe and half a sob. Rourke did not laugh. He moved like ice. He barreled across the alley and hit the radio man, palms pressing down on the wound. Blood warmed his gloves. He cursed the language and shouted for med kit. The team surged around the blue door like a wave. The civilians stumbled out. A neighbor hauled the woman and child into a doorway. Someone laid a blanket over trembling shoulders. The team formed a protective ring. Elia climbed to her feet. Her legs shook. She watched Kadir. He stood by the rooftop camera and cradled a cup of tea like it was a trophy. He had not moved from his place. He had not even blinked. He put the cup down and ran a finger along the lens of the scope. He spoke into his radio. Calm voice. "Flat now. They killed my spotter," he said for everyone to hear. Then he laughed. It was a small laugh. A clean laugh with no heat. It rolled down like a blade. Rourke answered with a curse. "We have one dead on the roof," he said. "Kadir has eyes across the valley. We need to move civilians." "Do it," Elia said. Her mouth felt dry. Her hands still smelled of smoke. She had done what she came to do. She felt no lightness. War did not hand out victory. They moved. The team guided the family across the lane. Doyle limped. A shard had nicked his calf. He ignored it. Rourke barked orders. Elia watched a boy hand a scrap of bread to a mangy dog. The small Mercy hit her between rib bones. A crack sounded above the alley. At first Elia thought it was just more lens flare. Then she saw movement on the ridge. A new silhouette. Not Kadir. A man in a long coat with a scoped rifle. He sat like a statue and did not bother to hide. He raised the scope and zeroed on a shape below. Rourke's head snapped up. The team froze. The mood shifted to ice. Rourke blinked once and then took off. He crossed the lane in 3 long strides. He did not yell. He moved on instinct. He threw himself between the ridge and the civilians. The first shot cracked. It took Rourke under the shoulder. He went down hard like a bridge snapped. The world in his ears became a drum. The team exploded into motion. They hit the ground. Return fire hissed from every wall. Men with dark scarves dropped behind broken vans and answered with AK bursts. Elia fell with them. The rifle was off her shoulder and skidded. She grabbed it and rolled. Her lungs burned from the smoke and the run. She aimed through the chaos. The scoped man on the ridge had moved. He was sliding behind a boulder. A second shot whispered. No one called his name. The bullet cut the air where Rourke had been a pulse before. Rourke lay curled. Blood soaked his chest like spilled ink. "Medic!" Doyle shouted. He did not sound like a man asking. He sounded like a child. Elia crawled to Rourke with the rest. Her fingers found the wound. It was worse than a nick. The blood was hot and thick. Rourke's eyes were open. He looked at her like a man who had seen a long road. He smiled once. It was small and tired. He tried to say something. "Stay with me," Elia said. Her voice came out flat. The world tilted. A whine rose behind them and a new thrumming filled the valley. Not a drone. Too heavy. Wheels. The ground under their palms trembled. Across the ruined square, a convoy crawled into view. Armored personnel carriers. Black flags stitched to antennae. Men in helmets. They formed like a second wave. Kadir's men. The Technical's crew scrambled to hook tow cables. The gun they had could still rip the market. The spotter on the roof tapped his watch and smiled into a camera. Someone filmed Rourke bleeding in the mud. Someone else fed the stream to a phone. "Hold them," Rourke tried to say. The words broke. Elia heard metal clank. She felt the pressure of duty settle on her like a lead vest. She had cut one head from the snake. The head still hissed. The valley held its breath. Civilians sobbed. The boy clutched his mother and banged his fist into her shoulder. Elia looked to Rourke. He was pale. His breath came in short, jagged pulls. She could not let him die for nothing. She could not let the civilians become an audience. She felt every choice narrow to a point. She rose. The rifle hung heavy in her hands. Doyle reached for her sleeve. "Elia," he said. His voice broke. She looked at the ridge. The scoped man readied another shot. The convoy edged closer. Kadir raised his hand and waved like a host at a show. The speaker crackled to life again and a voice filled the alley. "Thank you," Kadir said. "We just began." A distant rumble answered him. Metal screamed down a nearby street. The roar of engines became a wall of sound. Something bigger than a convoy came over the rise. It was not just men. It was a machine built to clear cities. Elia steadied her rifle. Rourke's blood warmed the mud under her palms. She could not wait. She had to break the next link or everything would snap. She fed around and aimed at the ridge. She inhaled. The glass fogged. Her vision narrowed. She could feel the wind change. She whispered, "For Rourke." The trigger pressed. Elia's shot broke the ridge. The man with the scope pitched backward, his rifle tumbling down the rocks. The sound of the impact echoed through the valley like a gavel strike. For one heartbeat, silence stretched across the alleys, broken only by the rasp of Rourke's ragged breathing. Then chaos roared back. The convoy disgorged men in waves. Black flags flapped. Boots pounded dirt. Bullets raked walls and shattered shutters. Civilians screamed and ducked into doorways. A mortar shell landed near the square, lifting a cloud of dust and debris that choked the air. "Elia, with me," Doyle shouted, dragging her behind a burned-out truck. His face was pale but his eyes burned. He pressed his last magazine into her vest. "You'll need it." Rourke coughed blood. His voice was a rasp, barely audible under the storm. "Get them out, civilians first. Don't waste me." Elia knelt beside him. Her hands shook, but her eyes held steady. She nodded. "I'll come back for you. I promise." Doyle fired blind over the hood. The SEALs formed a desperate ring around the family and the bleeding commander. Every second stretched thin, every round heavier than the last. The odds twisted ugly. They were being pushed to collapse. The speaker crackled again. Kadir's voice slid into the square like oil. Calm, mocking. "Brave shot, soldier. But one shot does not win a war. You cannot stop the tide. Surrender, and I will spare the children." Elia's jaw clenched. She raised her rifle and scanned rooftops. Through the dust she saw him, Kadir, standing bold on the edge of a half-collapsed mosque, framed by smoke and fire. No cover. He wanted to be seen. He wanted the camera to drink him in. A king addressing the conquered. Doyle followed her aim. "Don't," he hissed. "It's bait. He wants you to try." She locked her scope on Kadir's chest. The wind shifted again, curling the smoke in new directions. She breathed once. Twice. Her finger hovered on the trigger. And then, light. A red dot bloomed across her vest. Her blood froze. A sniper had her in his sights. Another of Kadir's ghosts, hidden, waiting for her to take the shot. Her chest rose slow. Her cheek stayed pressed to the stock. She knew one wrong twitch, one desperate pull, and she would be gone. But if she hesitated, so would Rourke. So would the family. So would every life in the square. The speaker boomed again, closer now, like Kadir's voice filled her skull. "Shoot me, girl. See what happens. Do you believe in miracles twice?" Alia's heart hammered. She could feel Doyle's hand tighten on her sleeve, begging her not to do it. The sniper's dot held steady, pulsing like a heartbeat. She whispered under her breath, almost too quiet to hear. "I believe in follow-through." Her finger pressed. The rifle roared. The world split. The shot cracked across the square. Elia rode the recoil, eyes locked through the scope. For a split second she saw Kadir stagger, his teacup explode in his hand. But before she could register victory, fire lanced across her shoulder. The sniper's round tore through flesh and slammed her into the mud. Pain flared white. Her rifle clattered beside her. Doyle dragged her behind cover, shouting her name. His face blurred through the haze. "Stay with me, Park. Stay with me." She clenched her teeth, forcing air through her lungs. The wound burned, but she was alive. Alive meant she could still fight. Kadir straightened on the rooftop, blood dripping from his sleeve. He hadn't fallen. He raised his arms to the cameras, shouting in his own language. His men roared back, their voices filling the valley. He had turned her hit into theater, proof of his invincibility. Rourke coughed and groaned. His blood stained Doyle's gloves as he pressed harder on the wound. "Move." Rourke gasped. "Get them out." Mortar fire shook the ground again. Shrapnel ripped into walls. A child screamed. The family huddled closer, trapped between crossfire and collapsing stone. The SEALs were down to half their ammo. Every magazine was a countdown. Every heartbeat was a debt. Elia tried to rise. Pain stabbed her ribs. She grabbed Doyle's arm and forced herself up. "Help me line up the shot," she rasped. "Are you insane?" Doyle barked. "You're bleeding out. We don't get another chance." She gritted her teeth. "He's rallying them. If he lives, this doesn't end." The sniper's dot swept the alley again, searching for her through dust and shadow. She felt its presence like a predator circling prey. She adjusted the scope with shaking fingers, ignoring the sting of blood. She had one round chambered. No more. One chance to finish it. Then the square exploded with sound. Engines, heavy and deep. A new convoy rolled in, but not Kadir's. Camouflage painted. Allied. The thump of helicopter rotors shook the rooftops. A shadow fell across the valley. Support had arrived. Kadir froze on the rooftop. His comm mask cracked for the first time. He grabbed a radio and barked orders. His men scattered like startled wolves. Some dragged the camera equipment, others ran for vehicles. The sniper on the ridge shifted targets, torn between covering retreat and silencing Elia. The SEALs cheered, voices raw. But Rourke didn't cheer. His hand tightened on Elia's wrist. His eyes locked onto hers, heavy with pain and clarity. "Don't let him go," he whispered. She knew what he meant. The reinforcements could save them, but Kadir would slip away in the chaos. If he lived, this valley would bleed again. Elia lifted the rifle one last time. Her arms trembled. Her vision swam. The sniper's red dot blinked on her chest again, steady as a metronome. It was a duel across smoke and fire. One breath. One heartbeat. One trigger pull. She exhaled, slow and steady. Her world narrowed to Kadir's face. Her finger tightened. The sniper fired. She fired. Both shots thundered at once. The two shots tore the air apart. Elia's shoulder jolted back as her rifle roared. At the same instant, the sniper's round punched into the stone beside her face, spraying chips across her cheek. For a heartbeat she thought she was dead. But she stayed breathing. Through the scope, she saw Kadir's expression twist. The round struck him center mass. His body folded, staggering against the rooftop edge. His arms pinwheeled once, then he toppled, crashing into rubble below. The camera crew dropped their gear, panic snapping their ranks apart. The sniper on the ridge shouted something guttural and vanished behind stone. His dot disappeared. The field shifted. A cheer erupted from Doyle, raw and ragged. She did it. But Elia wasn't smiling. She collapsed to her knees, her wound leaking warm down her side. Doyle caught her under the arms, half dragging, half holding. Rourke still lay in the mud, breath shallow, eyes fixed on the fading smoke. He had heard the shot. He had seen Kadir fall. His lips curled into the smallest grin. "Good soldier," he rasped. Then his head rolled against Doyle's arm. "Rourke." "No, no, no," Doyle shouted, pressing harder, desperate. The medic team from the reinforcements rushed in, pushing Doyle back. They worked frantically, cutting armor, pumping fluids. The rest of the SEALs formed a protective cordon as Allied vehicles sealed off the square. Civilians wept as soldiers pulled them to safety. A helicopter thundered overhead, lowering ropes. The valley no longer echoed with Kadir's voice. Only with the chaos of retreat. Elia sat slumped against the truck, blood-soaked, rifle across her lap. Her body trembled, but her gaze never left the rooftop where Kadir had stood. His body lay broken. Yet in her gut, she knew the fight was not over. A leader like him always left seeds. Another would rise. The medic leaned close. "You're lucky. Shoulders torn, but you'll live." Doyle crouched beside her, his voice hoarse. "You didn't just hit the impossible shot. You broke his hold. Everyone here will remember that." Elia shook her head. "Not everyone. Rourke won't." Her voice cracked for the first time. The medics loaded her onto a stretcher. As they carried her toward the chopper, she turned her head. Civilians huddled together. The boy peeked from under his mother's arm. He looked at her, wide-eyed, and lifted a hand in a small salute. For the first time that day, Elia let herself smile. Weak. Faint. But real. Above, the rotors thundered, carrying them out of the ruined valley. War was not over. Her scars would never fade. But she had made her promise count. And somewhere, in the silence after the battle, she believed Rourke's last order still lived inside her: "Don't let him go." She hadn't. The valley lay scarred and smoking, but free for now. Tomorrow would bring another fight. But tonight, one impossible shot had shifted the war. The sky swallowed the team as the helicopter lifted. The battlefield shrank below. The cost had been high, but survival had a price. Elia closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "Follow through." And the blades carried her into the uncertain future.